Now I'd like to introduce Howard Altshuler.
All right, so I think Steve's slide about the runaway deficit spending just proves my theory that my daughter is in charge of government spending. So, okay, I'm Howard Altshuler. I am an audit partner at Weaver, and I lead up our real estate practice. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Weaver were full-service CPA firm, coast to coast. We were founded in Fort Worth 75 years ago, so we're celebrating a special anniversary this year. And we've also been a long-standing sponsor of the forecast, of which I'm also proud of. This year, I was the forecast committee chairman, and it's been a lot of fun doing that. And I want to give a shout out to my committee for all the help that they gave, and especially a shout out to Karen, Abby, Kelly, and the rest of the staff at the Real Estate Council who really made this job easy. So let's give them a hand. Okay, so far I'm having a really good time at this event, and I'm hoping everybody else is too. So now we're going to hear from our market sector experts. So if the panel can start coming up. So the people you're going to hear from today, not in the order that they're walking up the stairs, Scot Bennett with the Beck Group, Amber Calhoun with M2G, Drew Kile with IPA, Sam Ray with Hillwood, Geoff Shelton with JLL, and Marty Wieder with the Arlington Economic Development Council. And Monica Luera with Trademark Property is going to serve as the moderator. So it's my pleasure to ask you to turn your attention to the panelists as they talk about the road ahead. And then Monica, when you're done, please call up Daryl Heath.
Okay. Do we look like our AI pictures? I wish I had those cheekbones. Thanks, Howard. Yes, as he said, I'm Monica Luera, VP of Development at Trademark Property Company, and I have the honor of leading this panel discussion today. And so we'll just have each of you introduce yourself and then name your favorite place to celebrate a closing or a big win. So I'll start with Geoff.
Am I on here? Oh, hey, good morning. I'm Geoff Shelton with JLL. Help oversee our office division in Fort Worth. Favorite place to celebrate a closing?
Favorite restaurant?
Since we're forecasting, I would say Chumley House moving forward. I feel like that's how our city is growing, so go with that.
I'm Amber Calhoun with M2G Ventures, VP of Leasing. That's a tough one. Probably Walloons because it's classic. You feel like you're stepping back in time.
Sam Ray with Hillwood, Director of Industrial Leasing, been with Hillwood for 10 years this year. And for Hillwood, it's probably the Circle T Ranch, the Texas Barn for us.
Mine's Teddy Wong's. I love Teddy Wong's. I'm just interested where y'all like to eat at. So Teddy Wong's.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name's Scot Bennett. Great question, Monica. I would say we got a lot of great options in Fort Worth, but I would say when we're celebrating a win, it's our office. We have a really good patio in a good part of town, and it's meant to have a good time.
I'm Marty Wieder. I'm Executive Director of the Arlington Economic Development Corporation, a group that's been around for 4 years now, and pleased to be there. And granted, in Arlington, we've got a lot of selections too, but I'm going to choose Mercury Chop House, the facility that's owned by our mayor.
Did he pay you to say that?
Good choice. Drew Kile with IPA. Pleased to be here. I'm going to go with another Marcus restaurant. It's close to my house, Clay Pigeon, although I've had the chance to have a closing at Circle T. That's a pretty special place.
Awesome. Okay, Scot, I'm going to start with you. What does 2025 look like for the Beck Group? What are you currently working on? What are you seeing across Fort Worth, and what markets seem to be the busiest?
Yeah, thank you. And I forgot to introduce myself, Scot Bennett with the Beck Group here in Fort Worth. 24 was a really good year. 25 looks even better. I'm second guessing some of my thoughts based on the prior presentation, but really what we're speaking about here is Fort Worth and what we're seeing, and we're seeing a lot of activity. There's activity all across the city, north, south, east, west, and we've had a good part of that work. There's been a lot of work at TCU that we've done, both that we're wrapping up and stuff that's upcoming. Smaller projects like a renovation of the University Christian Church. But there's a lot of bigger jobs that are happening, institutional jobs that are happening. JPS has had a massive program that's impacted the market, healthcare overall. There's a lot planned for downtown. There's a lot that's been delivered downtown. sizable projects coming up, hospitality. But I think that what's interesting is that the data market has also been a very strong market, and that's had a very big pull. So, some of the things that we deal with in terms of issues are related to the volume of work that we have coming up in this market. But, for us, it's been a really good market, and a good year, and this year and next year look really, really strong.
Cool. Amber, you're next. With retail space shifting, what opportunities do you see for repurposing properties, whether for mixed use, fulfillment centers, or more experiential concepts?
Well, first, I think the cost of dirt and construction plays a big role in this. So you have landlords that are wanting to do more of an adaptive reuse. Technology plays into that quite a bit, whether it's display signage, marketing strategies. So Bob Young, actually with Weitzman, and I'm going to read this, coined the term tech and mortar, which I think is brilliant. So it's physical real estate that's supercharged with digital outreach. Many retailers are focusing on sustainable practices, eco-friendly building materials, and then that you also have green spaces as well, and creating a more experiential experience for the consumer and the users. At M2G, I think they've done a killer job of really leading the way on adaptive reuse. The Foundry is a great example of that, and we have more in the pipeline, so stay tuned.
Trademark's all about experiential, so.
Yes, and Lincoln Square, I will mention that. You guys are doing a great job.
Yeah. Working with Marty, we'll see. Geoff, for office, how has tenant activity evolved in the past year? What trends do you see shaping demand in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand where we sit today with our vacancy levels for our core two markets, so downtown and really West Fort Worth. And I think it's also important to realize that macro trends do not apply when we're talking about Fort Worth. So when you read the Wall Street Journal and it's excess sublease space, tons of vacancy, incentives, it really doesn't apply to us. As we sit here today, our vacancy rate's about 14% for those two core submarkets. About 5% of that vacancy is tied up within 3 to 4 assets. So we're getting into single digit vacancy right now. The new construction that you hear about has been delivered. It's stabilized. It's full. It takes 2 years to build a new building of the number that are proposed. So what does that look like for a tenant? I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but it's a landlord's market right now. You're going to see increased rental rates. You're going to see certainly a push in your lease term. And right now, the Class A and really even B plus demand through homegrown in-market expansions is far exceeding our supply.
Sam, I'll round out the table over here. Compare DFW's industrial market in 2024 to where it was a couple of years ago from vacancy, rent growth, construction standpoint, and what do you think those metrics mean for 2025 industrial?
Yeah, I think it's important first on the industrial side to look out. So DFW is the second largest industrial submarket, the second largest industrial market in the United States to Chicago at 1.2 billion square feet. Tarrant County is 417 million square feet of that. Alliance, Texas is 90 million square feet of that. And so our importance in the global supply chain's really never been more important. But when you look at our vacancy right now across DFW, it's 9.5% vacant. That's a big lift from 5.2% vacant at the end of 2022. So that vacancy is almost doubled. But really, and then you look at the absorption numbers. So we absorbed 21 million square feet in DFW last year. 2 of the 5 largest industrial markets in the United States had negative absorption last year. So DFW's in a really good place. And we still saw positive rent growth, even with absorption numbers coming down. We still had almost 5% rent growth year over year. So it was still a really good year. Most of that was buoyed by the biggest deals in the market. There were 6 over 1 million square foot deals done in DFW last year. And so of that 21 million square feet, of course, a lot of those were tied up in six deals. And then 2025, we're really excited with construction coming down in a big way from kind of that peak of end of 2023. We really think the second half of this year we'll start to see construction tick back up. We'll start to see vacancy come back down, and then we're going to start to see construction pick back up again here the second half of the year.
You hear that, contractors? Construction. Drew, how are the fundamentals right now for multi, and what demographic trends are having the biggest impact?
They're a lot better here than they are in other parts of the country, for sure. We're leading the nation in absorption. We just got our fourth quarter numbers in, and everybody talks about the supply, which we delivered 44,000 units in DFW, the biggest number since the 80s, but we absorbed 45. So just a huge year for absorption. We've seen occupancies bottom in kind of the 92.5 range, and actually in the A space had 0.3% rent growth, positive. You've got Austin leading the nation at like -8, -9%. So we'll take that. So I think we're certainly the number one or two market for investment around the country right now. We'll remain there for the foreseeable future. You got a lot of markets that have a lot of work to do to catch up. You got Phoenix, urban Nashville, Austin, the Carolinas, Atlanta that all have a real supply problem. That 45,000 units or the go forward that we have under construction in DFW represents maybe 3.5% of our stock. I mean, you've had markets that have been delivering 10 and 12% of their stock annually in some of these markets. So no surprise they're overwhelmed. Demographically, still leading the nation. We were behind New York last year in job growth. Did about, I think it was 65,000 jobs last year. I think we're projecting about 55 this year. So still some real positivity. And as always, we talk about in-migration of your typical renter. So we're still running between 30 and 40,000 people moving to DFW every year that are in that 20 to 34-year-old bandwidth. And statistically, we're kind of high 60% of those folks are renters. So, continued folks coming in, and you look at delivering 44,000 units last year. The third parties are projecting 36,000 units delivered this year. I think it'll come in below that, but 16,000 next year. And for like clockwork, for a decade, we absorb 26 to 28,000 units a year. And that supply is not going to come back. You talk to anybody that's a developer right now, the gap of where they need to be to where they are to make a deal work is wide. And we're not going to get relief from those rates coming down. We're not getting relief from construction costs in a meaningful way. And so we think, we're already about 2 years into this without a lot of new starts. And we think that probably runs another couple years. And they might pick up a little bit, but you're just not going to see this big spike back up in multifamily starts. So it sets us up for a really good run for the next, 3 to 5 years of undersupply, better operations. And there's a tremendous amount of capital. I mean, by any metric, there's probably $220 to $240 billion worth of equity teed up to chase multifamily. And even in 21, I think we did $200 billion in sales. So that equity represents 2 to 2.5 times one of the best years we've ever had. And we're not going to hit those numbers anytime soon. So a lot of capital out there. So overall, pretty healthy.
So multi's good, industrial's good, office is good, retail's good. That's good.
Let's just leave.
I know. Is that it? Any questions?
Drop the mic.
Yeah. Well, you got to let Marty talk about Arlington. Marty, so Arlington and Fort Worth have teamed up with each other for decades. Do you think this level of collaboration will continue in the future, and if so, why?
Oh, I think we already are, and I think it's going to happen even more now. Once we've gone to our new spaces just this week at Choctaw Stadium, we're right up next to the Convention and Visitors Bureau offices and the National Medal of Honor offices, and we are thrilled to be in that. Robert and I were talking earlier; they're going to be moving to their new space here in the coming months. I think the collaboration between our two teams has got to continue. And I was telling somebody earlier. You got to think back to the guy that was my mentor and real inspiration, Tom Vandergriff. We wouldn't have Major League Baseball here had it not been for an early agreement between Fort Worth and Arlington to build Turnpike Stadium. Many of you may not even know what that is, but that was the predecessor that led to Arlington having the ability and Tom to reach out to the Washington Senators and convince them to move to become the Texas Rangers. We would have never had that World Series victory we just had year before last. And we may be on the path for another this year with everything that the Rangers are doing. That kind of cooperation and collaboration has got to take place. We kind of repeated it again when we were in the middle of COVID and PBR needed to do the World Championships and Dickies was closed down. And so we said, we can bring them over to AT&T and separate them, and it can be very healthy. And it's led to a great relationship between the two of us. When we learned PBR was going to be relocating their corporate headquarters, you just saw it's going to be here in Fort Worth. We both went after it. But I think that, in particular, the tag team of we're both going to pursue it. We knew that they were looking at Dallas, they were looking at Las Vegas, it's a victory no matter where they land, and they're going to continue having their world championships at AT&T. So we're kind of really teaming up with one another in a way that not a lot of other communities, I think, get to do. It's just really the Tarrant County way.
I agree. Scott, let's talk some more construction. How is the positive forecast for design and construction impacting costs? And what is Beck doing to help mitigate that risk around rising costs?
Well, Drew just kind of touched on it also. I mean, the busy market means there's greater demand. There's a lot more starts. We still haven't, if we look at next year, the prices are still creeping up a bit, not like they had been, but they're still going up. And one of the other things that really drives that is labor. Labor is the biggest issue that we've got right now, both in our trade partners, in our firms, and our practices. It's hard to get people to come to work and to get interested and excited about doing these jobs. And what we try to tell is you can make a very good living at it, especially now because they're in demand. But it does make it hard. And then even with the partners that we do have, there's a lot of younger people that are coming in, and it just takes time to get that experience that is really necessary in the industry. So labor shortages, material shortages, the AIA billing index just came out. It looks like it slowed down a little bit in the last quarter of last year, but we're hoping it'll pick back up. There's still a lot on the boards, and some of these national metrics too, they're just, you look around and you're like, okay, it says that we're kind of slow, but we don't look slow, and we're in our own bubble here that we all need to be really grateful for, because there's a lot of attention on us right now. We're one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing city and metroplex in the nation, and we're going to see it. And so I think one of the things we need to do is just talk very positively about the opportunities that are out there. We're always trying to get people in our industry. If you want to make good money, come see us at Beck. Shameless plug right there. But it's true. Like we need more people coming to the industry and helping us so that we can put good work in place, help moderate costs, and keep the city growing.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of tension on Fort Worth, and that kind of leads to a question I have for Amber. Obviously, with everything the Fort Worth Film Commission's doing, and we call it the Taylor Sheridan effect of, focus on Fort Worth and everything going on and highlight on our Western lifestyle. Amber, how has the Western lifestyle influenced retail growth that you're seeing in the stockyards?
One, I'm glad I get to answer the fun questions. So I've seen more cowboy boots and hats, I think, today than any other commercial real estate event. So good job, you guys. The Stockyards has always created a unique experience. I think there's a new fascination with the Western lifestyle. Consumers are seeking an authentic, big screen experience. How many of you have seen Yellowstone, 1883, Landman? It's really changing the horizon for Fort Worth. I recently read that by 2032, the Western wear market will reach $185 billion. And that's just, that's a crazy number. And then the Stockyards itself, we had 9 million visitors, and that surpassed the Eiffel Tower last year until the Olympics happened. We'll make a comeback, don't worry.
Got any tenants you can tell us about? I'm just kidding.
No, I wish. And a little bit of background. So what I do with M2G is I'm working on phase 2 of the Stockyards, which will be a ground up project, which is very different than what M2G has done with Mule Alley. What's interesting to me, though, is we've run some models, and 40% of our visitors are actually within less than 50 miles, which I think is a great testament to DFW and everyone supporting local. But as far as the Western trend, I don't think it's a trend anymore. I think it's definitely here to stay.
I definitely wear cowboy boots to the office more, not just for rodeo time. Geoff, you talked about office being really a landlord market right now. So what key factors should people who are looking to plan new offices or build in today's market, like what kind of office space demand are you seeing?
Yeah, I think the clear is the new development that's going on in the Cultural District in Clear Fork, and certainly the Stockyards. And the ongoing theme we've heard for 5 years, raise your hand if you've heard the phrase flight to quality. You're lying. Everybody's heard it. It's all we hear about. But what does quality mean? And so I think you need to really from a developer standpoint, you look at what does the tenant want? What's the activity that the tenant's looking? And the reality is the tenant wants flight to neighborhood, flight to experience, and really flight to convenience. And through those factors, there's a rent premium associated with that. And that's obviously kicks off the development of the new mixed use product that we're seeing. That's very attractive for in-town groups that are looking to upgrade their space, as well as some right now regional out of town. Between Van Zant, One University, the second Crescent Tower, and potentially some stuff at Clear Fork, you're going to see 200 to 400,000 square feet of new Class AA product delivered in the next 2 to 3 years. That's going to be received very well from really a pin-up, as I was mentioning earlier, a pin-up tenant demand through limited availability that's right now.
Exciting. Sam, with our new president in office and potential tariffs being discussed, how do you think these tariffs will impact the DFW industrial demand in the short and long term?
That's a great question. I don't know that anyone knows what Donald Trump's going to do other than Donald Trump, but he seems to be throwing out tariff conversations daily, and Mexico brings 78% of the entire country's exports come to the United States. Of that 78%, 30% come to the state of Texas. So to say there wouldn't be an impact if a 25% tariff gets placed on all imports from Mexico, I think we'd be kidding ourselves. But the long-term strategy, which is, of course, to like reshoring, onshoring of the United States, DFW would be a huge beneficiary of that with just our population growth, labor profile, colleges, schools, our education system here. We would be in a great position to see some of that advanced manufacturing really come back to the United States. And I think the thing, though, that might be a little bit worrisome there, though, is that those projects take time. I mean, we've seen it in Alliance, Texas with MP Materials and Schluter Systems and Stanley Black & Decker. These advanced manufacturing projects from inception to completion can take 4 to 5 to 6 years. So there's a time frame in which it will take some time before those users and those facilities really, we'd start seeing the benefits of them. So thank you.
Drew, you touched on interest rates already, but with rates elevated, and how are deals being structured right now in the multifamily space? And what type of buyers are still active?
Yeah, we've got the benefit of having Fannie and Freddie that'll lend on multifamily, so that goes a long way in our world to help keep rates down. I'd say over the course of last year, probably starting in the spring, we saw a return of basically everyone, like all the institutional capital. I mean, we had Goldman Sachs take down a big high-profile building in Fort Worth last year. We closed with KKR. Blackstone was active. So you finally saw a lot of the big boys play last year. And with the exception of maybe a couple of big core open end funds that'll probably come back this year, everybody was active. In terms of how they're financing buildings, it's really 3 buckets. It's either all cash, typically an agency fixed rate loan, usually a 5 or 7 year Fannie or Freddie loan, and then debt funds. And so was in New York a few weeks ago, and somebody made the comment, when you see the institutions start to go to floaters, you know it's going to be game on. And I just got back late last night from our conference in Vegas, so 72 hours of speed dating. It was awesome.
Did you win big?
I didn't even get on the table. It's too much.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I was listening for that floating rate comment, and you certainly heard it a lot. I mean, SOFR's down inside of the 10-year right now, and we've seen spreads come in a lot in the last couple of months. So right now, I mean, our debt guys locked a couple of loans that were like a 105 spread over the 5-year. I mean, that's a tight spread. That was 160, 180 pips not long ago. So we've seen spreads come in even though rates have been higher. You've got the floating rate option coming in. The floating rate spreads are about 200 to 220 over. And so people can buy those rates down a little bit and be competitive. And with all that capital out there, we need stability. I think that's the thing. It's not so much that we can't get the price we want to get, or buyers can't hit the seller's price. Given higher interest rates, they'll figure that part out. We're coming into rent growth. They can make the model work. They've got levers. The challenge is when they make an offer and the 5 years at 3.5, and 40 days later when they got to go hard with $1 million, the 5 years at 4.2. You know, it's just you can't operate in that airspace when it's just that volatile. So hopefully we'll get, a little bit more of a tighter bandwidth. And I think that allows everybody to have the confidence to lean in and transact. But compared to some other worlds, we've got a lot of options for debt, and there's a lot of capital that could even go all cash.
And DFW is doing good, so it's helpful. Marty, you were touching on the Arlington and Fort Worth collaboration and just Tarrant County working together, but what factors do other cities in Tarrant County or even Fort Worth and Arlington rely on to sustain quality growth and investment?
Well, certainly we want quality growth, and a lot of ours is going to be redevelopment because we're about 95% built out. That's the whole reason there was a campaign to hold basically a referendum to bring about designating a 1/4-cent sales tax to be used for economic development. That's how the corporation had actually been around since 2015, but it hadn't been funded. It was a toothless tiger, as I like to say. So that's changed, and we knew we needed that for redevelopment. I think for when you're talking about office in particular, since you mentioned that, I would call out Geoff. I think it's going to have to be continued collaboration within the brokerage houses that some are based in Dallas, some have both Dallas and Fort Worth offices. And I came across one working with Alex Rapowitz, who did a phenomenal job of helping us because we knew there was a deal they were working with somebody out of market that was looking at this region, and they were only talking to Dallas-based brokers. And fortunately, Alex was in the room and said, well, wait a minute. They were looking at some sites, and he said, you need to be looking at Arlington. And ended up, this is a smaller one. They're just testing the market, wanting to get to see whether they should come, where they should land in North Texas, and ended up choosing Arlington partly because of the workforce issue. It was very important. I think we've got to continue to communicate and to an extent ensure that we're represented in those discussions that might be being held off-site to ensure that we're in that mix and at least having a chance, kind of like how we did indirectly on PBR. We were competing but complementing one another. And I think we've got to continue to do that. We've been blessed on the office side, had a big announcement yesterday. If you didn't see it, very thrilled that the United Football League decided to go ahead and make move their corporate headquarters here, maintain the hub here, ended up leasing 112,000 square feet right close to the new National Medal of Honor Museum. That ends up being, for a headquarters lease, the largest lease transaction in Tarrant County in the last 24 months. And I think we can build on this if we work together and ensure that we're at least have a seat at the table to be able to show the good things we've got in Arlington and in Fort Worth.
Yeah, a lot's happening in Arlington.
Hopefully more. We're working with you.
Yeah, hopefully more.
Yes, ma'am.
There will be more.
There will be more. We
manifest
know that.
things. I don't say if, I say when.
That's right.
Okay, Amber, let's talk about just traditional retail and traditional grocers. What do you see on the horizon for traditional grocers, and how might their role in retail evolve in the near future?
Sure. So traditional grocers, that's a mouthful, added almost 700,000 square feet in DFW last year. That's only going to go up. That definitely affects retail leasing as well, because most grocers are now not freestanding. There's a retail component that goes with those, restaurant as well. And normally that's 30,000 square feet plus, and that's also obviously great for construction. I think grocers are shifting also internally. They're more experiential, whether it's cooking classes or cooking stations. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've gone in an HEB and leave with 2 marinades that I don't need, but watching somebody cook with them, for some reason, I feel like I need them. So I think that's a game changer. I think the click and collect, your pickup stations, drive up, those are just expanding as well. And that means more real estate, more dirt. And out of that 700,000 square feet, obviously HEB, that's no surprise to anyone, but also Kroger and Tom Thumb were some players as well. Stabilizing rent prices as well. That's a big factor. Overall design, these sites keep growing as these grocers obviously grow. But yeah, we're not going down. We're going to see more and more grocery stores, and that obviously goes with the residential growth as well.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that Trademark is focused on is new development, mainly grocery anchored, but really trying to integrate them into other retail uses and not just standalone. And
yeah, absolutely. No, the grocers they're getting creative to still provide that in-store experience. We all love a drive up, post-COVID, but there's still that group that likes to go in the store, and this expansion and the square footage shows that.
I'm an in-store shopper. Put in my earbuds and I just walk around and pick up my bread and eggs and everything. Scott, tell us a little bit about AI being utilized in designing construction and just how you all or what you're seeing from that standpoint.
Well, it's everywhere, as we've all seen. It's important to realize it's artificial. So it's intelligence, but it's artificial. But we use a lot of technology in everything that we do. And the most important thing that we're doing is trying to increase predictability in the numbers, because the numbers are so important in making all the deals work. So we're using it a lot in the cost estimating space, but really the analysis of design options is where we're using it as well. It's a really good imaging and visioning tool if you know how to manipulate it. You just have to be really careful. I mean, it cannot replace the mind or the creativity of an individual or the knowledge somebody has of the market or costs or the hard work that it takes to get stuff done. But it is really being looked at by Beck in terms of how can we better utilize this technology? What is the accuracy of the information that we're getting? It's only as good as what's feeding it. So a lot of what we're doing is studying on creating our own databases. But, what we're trying to do is, again, really put it to work in an area where we can start to better analyze costs and systems and processes as well as the design process.
Yeah, I've found myself using AI a little bit more than I should be. Especially to, take questions, rewrite them. I like to use it to brainstorm, so it's very helpful. Sam, speaking of technology, how do you see technology shaping the industrial sector, and what innovations are having the biggest impact on your market?
Yeah, most of the innovations in the industrial side are happening inside the box right now. It's with the end users putting their automation, their robotics, their MHE conveyor systems. It's large investments inside of the building, and so what Hillwood's focused on is trying to make the best environment outside of the building for them to want to make those investments inside of the building. It's also driving them to think about their real estate a little bit differently. Some of the companies that are putting these technologies in the buildings, these investments are now $50, $100, $150 million inside of a building. That makes it really hard to be subject to a lease agreement where a landlord can mark you to market in a few years. So them needing to own their real estate or talking about really long-term leases are both things that have come up as they're thinking about these large investments inside of the cube. But within Alliance Texas, we created the Mobility Innovation Zone. So given Hillwood's unique scale of real estate within the Alliance Texas project, we really wanted to bring as many of these autonomous trucking companies, inside the warehouse robotics companies, and drone delivery groups to Alliance Texas to be the place where they come and actually test their technologies. And again, given our kind of unique scale of real estate, the infrastructure, how Alliance has been laid out, it makes a lot of sense. And so we've had some success there. We have 4 different autonomous trucking companies operating within the project today. The latest one, Torque, got announced at the end of last year. So really excited to be able to have those here in DFW and hopefully continue to grow.
A little scary, autonomous. Geoff, we've talked about it being a landlord market, but what are you seeing as it relates to flexibility and lease terms, and how is that impacting deals?
Not seeing much flexibility on.
Yeah.
I think it's important to know. We're seeing it, and they're correlated, right? Tenants are making long-term decisions. They understand their needs. They understand their current employee base. They understand their location. So those decisions are being made. They are starting much earlier than we traditionally start them. They're taking longer. They're very complex, not in terms of the financial modeling, but if you're looking at new construction and your lease expires in 26, how do we solve this commencement complexity, if you will? And I think it's really great. We've seen a shift in decision maker, not control, but tenant and ownership are giving their employees really collaboration on what they want to see in their space. Where do their employees want to office? What kind of amenities do they want if they were to relocate? So decisions are being made. They are taking longer, and you're really not seeing any more. I call them COVID Band-Aids, but you're just not seeing any short-term extensions being offered. Maybe a selective ownership group here and there, but landlords ownership are looking for committed term, whether that's 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. And if a tenant's not going to relocate to new construction, they have a pretty good pulse on what that rent bump is going to look like for them. And so they're willing to commit to existing product in the market much sooner.
Hey, Geoff, question for you. Are you seeing, as people are moving out to the double Class A that's getting built, is there a pipeline to backfill some of that space, especially like in the downtown?
I'm glad you said downtown because that's certainly what we're going to follow. I mean, our organic absorption through this new construction, given that CBD has the highest in-place rents, naturally your tenant base, prospect base is going to come from downtown. I think it's too early. I think those vacations into new space are going to take 2 years, at least the ones of size. If you ask me to sit here in 2027 and do the forecast, I'd tell you that we have some bigger blocks downtown that we're going to have to backfill. So I know we're talking about 25. 27 is going to look a lot different. You're going to see a lot of absorption into new construction, and that vacancy rate and availability rate more in downtown is going to be pretty significant. And that is purely homegrown. Now, if I think from a relocation standpoint, the way Fort Worth is, I think less square footage is more impactful, i.e. if we had 420 to 25,000 square foot relocations, be it regional or national, is much more beneficial than 100,000 square feet, plopping into core CBD. But your options for CBD corporate relocations are going to be downtown in 27. And then it's pretty exciting. There's some new office developments, mixed use developments that are really in place and drafting behind what's going to be delivered with Goldenrod and Crescent and Clearfork.
Drew, you talked about supply already for DFW multi, but is there anything else you want to expand on that or anything from the multi sector before we do our last questions and then maybe open it up for questions?
No, I think the biggest thing in supply, and it was the hot topic out in Vegas, was, there's a lot of markets, and kind of like you were saying, Geoff, you can't paint with a broad stroke. There's a lot of markets around the country that are getting killed right now. And so we spent a lot of time differentiating Dallas-Fort Worth. We spent a lot of time differentiating within Dallas-Fort Worth. I think on the Tarrant County side, our supply really ran pretty significantly in the in-town market from 16 to 20. What happened was, 75% of the assets that got built in the urban core traded in 21 and 22. So you had a lot of new ownership, new management. They all got put on revenue management software, et cetera, et cetera. So it just took a while for all those to sort of stabilize out. I think we're very well positioned on the western side for a good run here. We just haven't had the spike of I've been talking too much the last few days. The spike of supply over the last couple of years that we've seen in other markets. And so you look forward over the next 3 to 5 years, we're teed up to really run. There's a lot of submarkets and certainly cities around the country that they still have another couple years of pain. I mean, our pain was 2 years ago. And so we're right in the middle. As folks coming in and looking at DFW, you really have to drill down. It's a micro market thing. People aren't looking at living in-town Fort Worth and living in McKinney. McKinney's got a supply problem, we don't. But yeah, the supply is going to come down. The operations are going to be good. I think the other big question a lot of people are asking is kind of what's happening in that down spectrum space, that sort of 70s and 80s workforce product. For 10 seconds of background, you had a lot of people that were a dentist, in 2010 and then started buying apartments in 2015. And next thing you know, they're syndicating capital and they're buying a lot of those kind of $10 to $30 million down spectrum deals. And they were over leveraged, poorly operated, and they're the ones that are getting killed, right? They had a 3+1+1 floater, and they're 80% occupied right now, and they're in a bad spot. So we have not seen a lot of that come to market. We've not seen a lot of those lenders willing to take those deals back over the last couple of years. It's a lot of kicking of the can. We'll start to see more of that this year, and we're going to need some bigger capital to go back into the 80 space to kind of get these buildings, get them fixed up, get them re-tenanted, and tracking in the right direction. So that's an area of the apartment industry that's got some work to do over the next couple of years, because you just had a lot of deals that have kind of lost their way. But everything really 90s and newer, very stable, strong demographics, people staying in apartments for longer. I just saw the latest number in DFW that's $1,658 more to own a home than to live in an apartment. For the record, that was running at like $600 to $800 for about 15 years. And it's not going to go back down. right? I mean, the homes are not going to lose value, and rents are kind of flat right now. So if anything, it's getting more expensive. Austin's like $2,600 is the delta. So, it's going to be harder for people to move into homes. Demographically, that's good for multifamily long term. You get markets like Arlington have had a tremendous amount of growth. I mean, some of the best, and sometimes I call them not that sexy pockets around DFW have been around Arlington. The George Bush corridor in Grand Prairie, Mansfield's been a strong growth market, and it's just supporting all the jobs, the great jobs in Arlington. And you got overbuilt in the '80s, so there has been not a lot of new supply over the last few years, but you got a ton of things happening, and that's a good example of what's going on macro DFW.
Yeah, we partnered with Bob Kimball, you may know, on Arlington Commons years ago. Did see our council. There was some real caution about it, but did approve a new complex with Lincoln property. With JPI the other night next to our airport because of the fact, and they referenced it, because of eSpace coming in. Whenever they move, they right now are in temporary space right next to United Football League, close to the National Medal of Honor Museum, but eventually the Economic Development Corporation will be building a new facility for them at the Arlington Municipal Airport. So there was a recognition of, they know they're bringing in people from California. They're the second Silicon Valley corporate relocation we had in 2024. They know they're going to hire people here. They're going to bring people over. They want to have quality places nearby. And that was an option they encouraged.
And Arlington has the benefit of being right in the Metroplex. I mean, you want people to live in Arlington and work in Arlington and stay in Arlington long term, but it's nice for people that are coming here to kind of have both directions to go to. Hopefully to the Fort Worth side, though.
To have some options, but we want them to come to the Anthem as it gets redeveloped, the Lincoln Square that we're doing with Trademark. I think that the biggest thing for us, fueling what you're talking about, Drew, too, is the employment side of things. You may have seen, and this ties in somewhat to what the owner of Mosey calls deep tech, advanced tech type development. To be able to get somebody in an autonomous vehicle manufacturer like them to decide, hey, we're going to come to Arlington and manufacture these 12-person vehicles that not only have tremendous software inside of it known as Sensei, but that he builds his chassis with 3D printing. And we love having that kind of leading edge, and it's nice to have it too with, let's face it, General Motors celebrating their 70th anniversary this past year and still just cranking. To be able to take what we've got, some of what we've been strong in already, and take it to the next level is very attractive, and it provides great salaries. Average incomes for Mosey over 100,000, and then for eSpace they're saying 95,000 of people working on the line building these satellites. It makes sense from the defense side that they want to be close initially and be associated with the National Medal of Honor Museum. And of course, that's the big elephant in the middle of the room for us, to be able to take the entertainment district and being known naturally for sports, but now to have something that's not only national but international in scope. Opening up on, I got asked by somebody today, when's that going to open? March 25th, 2025. March 25th is National Medal of Honor Day on the U.S. calendar. Thrilled that you're going to be hearing more about it, but there's going to be some big events swirling leading up to that are going to bring a lot of attention to Arlington, Texas. It is truly another one of our shining moments, if not one of the biggest. And it's going to change the complexion of our entertainment district. And like you're talking about, Monica, for people to want to come and stay and play and check out additional things. Makes us pretty excited.
Yeah. Lots of exciting things. Okay, I'm going to ask you all the last question, and then I think we'll have some time for a couple audience questions. So I'll start with you, Scott, and then we'll work our way and then end with Marty. So if you could read a headline about your industry in the next few years, what would that headline say? And feel free to expand on it.
Feel free to.
Expand on it.
All right.
You don't have to, but if you want to.
Well, I would like us to be a top 10 city, growth-wise, population-wise, because I think everything it's going to do to what we're trying to do. But I also would love to see, I don't have the specific headline, but the theme of it would be growth and innovation and quality. I think one of the most important things we do is we grow so fast, we need to make sure, and I've said this in years prior, but just hold on to the level of quality that we all expect today and make sure that we're developing responsibly, developing with quality. But the innovation is huge. And in Fort Worth, the Metroplex, Arlington, we've got a great opportunity to be an innovation hub, and we need to keep pushing that.
Sam?
I took the headline a little more literally. Mine was it's time to bulk up. And it's referring to bulk industrial space of over 500,000 square feet. But with with the peak of the construction market in DFW being right there at the end of 2023, since then, smaller, more infill projects have all been able to start on the industrial side, but really the new bulk construction projects, the 500,000 square foot plus, have really slowed down due to interest rates and just tenant demand. We're seeing a ton of demand here to start the year as we did at the end of last year, and so we're very bullish this year on, especially the second half of the year, on vacancy rates coming down in the biggest way across the different size ranges of industrial in that bulk size range. And then my big prediction is that Fort Worth or the west side of the Metroplex will see 4 new million square foot buildings start this year on a spec basis. So that would be a record year for us for new spec construction. And then we only have 2 existing million square foot buildings available on the west side of the Metroplex today, and I think both of those will be gone by the end of the year. So,
Bulk up. Amber?
So selfishly, I would love to say Fort Worth Stockyards 100% leased. But I think just in general, a year for Fort Worth's retail boom. We continue as locals to support our retailers, and then multiple innovative mixed-use developments coming out of the ground, I think is very important as well.
Geoff?
Thank you. I think Scott and Amber nailed it on the head. I mean, my theme is consistent with theirs in quality development. The overlying theme and thesis being, the homegrown, hometown heroes, their expansions will eventually pave the way for a national relocation. I think you'll see our existing tenant base absorb the new construction. That gets noticed from national companies of, hey, there's new product here. That all gets absorbed, and there's new development pipeline along with some CBD vacancy that I think will finally hit that home run with a national group here in the next 2 to 3 years.
Dallas-Fort Worth leads the nation in multifamily transactions and operational performance. And I think it's not just a wish. I think could be a reality. We did $26 billion in apartment sales in the peak of kind of 21 and 22 annually. I think we peaked in 22 at 26. We're getting the final data. We finished last year probably 5 or 6 billion in sales in DFW. So massive drop. Now those were epic years, but we're going to lead the nation over the next 3 to 5 years, I think, operationally and ultimately transactionally, which is great for, seeing capital come to the market. That'll help bring development back in our market, which provides the housing we need to get the jobs.
Marty?
You ready for me?
Yeah.
Might mention, you probably have heard a little bit about this because there's been some discussion about this 9 equivalent Super Bowl event coming up on the horizon in 2026 known as FIFA. And so related to that, plus a item in our strategic plan to be globally connected to an extent, it's going to be something like following FIFA and attractions like Mosey, Arlington, well on its way to a globally connected economic future. It's good for us in that a number of our new employers, Salcomp Manufacturing in particular, that's been here and is expanding, is based in Finland. To be able to reach out and work with companies that are already invest internationally, we want to build on that. And I think FIFA gives us a tremendous platform to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have FIFA coming up in 26 and then the Grand Prix.
The Grand Prix and our new offices, by the way, overlook the straightaway, the longest stretch.
How big is your office? Can we have an event?
Yeah, I don't know. I doubt it, but I imagine we might be doing something if we can. I don't know, but yeah, it's exciting. And to think that's going to be just 2 months before FIFA begins. So 2026 is going to be pretty dynamic. But 2024 was good. We had the All-Star game following the World Series, and you never know with the Medal of Honor Museum coming up here leading into March and starting in March. I think it paves the way for a good way too. That's extremely international in basis as well. And so I think that is a tremendous setup for what will happen in 26 with FIFA.
Does anyone have anything else they want to mention? Any questions from the audience? Yeah.
So you mentioned bulk up, lots of visitors, migration, growth. There's a lot of pain points that come with all of those items. In your opinion, what are the near and long-term things that we need to address now for bulking up and preparing for this growth that we've already seen happening here in Tarrant County? That's me.
Continue to talk to TxDOT. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. A lot.
You asking us all, Trav?
Yes, please.
I mean, I touched on it early on. I think the demand for us to be able to do what we need to do to deliver the things that we're planning for that are being financed, it's going to take a lot of people to get stuff done. It's going to take a lot of smart people, educated, skilled. I mean, the growth. I mean, if we just look a couple of years ahead, our people are bar none our biggest issue. People that want to do the work. And so I think in terms of the design and the construction world, the opportunities are there. You got to pick the right opportunities, and you got to get the right people, and then you got to execute well. And that's the biggest thing ahead of us. That's the challenge of growth.
Travis, I'd just say we want the best of that growth. So what the next panel might be talking about, what we're doing with economic development here, and improving procedures at the city that you're so actively involved with, to where when somebody's looking to go build here or Arlington or Plano, they're getting a good response. It's a good place to be. It's a good city to be working with. Obviously, Arlington's done, I think, an exceptional job of ramping that up over the years and attracting, a lot of the right things, as has Fort Worth. But, I think it's about bringing the right people in, and we got to go fix some of the issues. I mean, it's too hard to get to Walsh in the afternoons. The highway between Fort Worth and Arlington, we got to fix. I mean, it's just a few miles, but it's a train wreck. So we're finally fixing some stuff in North Fort Worth, but I think it's really going after and attacking some of those choke points, literally, that we need to attack. But how do we get our fair share of the best of that growth? I think that's what I'd like to see.
And as we've said in Arlington, and I've heard other communities say, it's okay to tell your council members it's okay to say no, because you want something better. Seek the best.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, maybe more towards you, Geoff. What are your thoughts, given what you spoke about the office development growth, especially along West 7, for brand new anonymity-rich spec office space, kind of mixed use for the Fort Worth CBD, especially if you got Dallas starting interest with big land grab, Hillwood's moving in downtown.
Sure.
It's also kind of morphing into multifamily developments there. Do you think it's prime for that type of development in the near future?
Can you start building this weekend? I mean, the demand is there right now. I think we're blessed that going back to infrastructure, I mean, the sites that are going to be developed this year or break ground are in place. The infrastructure's there. We know where they're at. We know which districts, submarkets they're in. So, I do think, barring some corporate relocation, whether it's national or regional, I think our supply chain over the next 2 years is pretty stable. We'll absorb it. It's not going to be overbuilt, which is going to lead to some distressed assets down the road. So it'll absorb. We just need to get started on them, and those are in process. And I think you'll see some exciting news here over the next, 60 to 90 days.
Haley.
The last few years, there was a lot of development in Magnolia, South Main. Is there kind of a certain area that you think we're going to focus on in 2025, or is it kind of all over the place?
Alliance, Texas.
Downtown Arlington,
Yeah.
where Sutton Frost Carey just opened up here recently with a brand new office building, too.
Well, I think everything going on in Walsh, right? Like,
Yeah,
all
I
the
was going to say,
expansion.
yeah.
Go
Kind
ahead,
of
Amber.
west towards Parker County, the west side of Fort Worth. You're going to see it really just kind of filling in, like the Chapel Creek area. There's a lot of growth over there.
It's everywhere. I mean, you look around, it's everywhere. And then you drive through the core, and the little sites are being redeveloped, and everything is, as the property values, I mean, the real estate guys know better than me, but as the property values increase, so does the development, the quality. And so it's just everything is just changing everywhere. And it's really exciting to see. I mean, I can't think of an area where you're not really, especially right here in the core and west and even east and southeast and south. I mean, it's just everything is changing so quickly. I'm really excited about it.
I think we've got reasons to be. And of course, we didn't even bring up in downtown Arlington, everybody gets the news. It's great that my alma mater, I'm a double Maverick, University of Texas Arlington, is going to build a new campus to the west, and good for them. But yet they're doing $500 million worth of expansion right now at our campus right next to our downtown. So it gives us that opportunity to be able to foster more of that right next to them that's walkable.
Okay. Well, thank you Thank you, everyone, for participating.